I'd like to call a meeting to order. Please stand for Pledge Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome you to beautiful Manalapan High School. Thank you for coming tonight. Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, this meeting has been duly advertised in the Aspen Park Press, issue August 1st, 2015. All municipal clerks of the townships and boroughs within the regional high school district have been duly notified, and requirements of posting of notices have been met. Minutes approval.
We're not there just yet, Mr. Moses.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Boyce.
So, first order of business is to announce the results of the election from November 3rd. Then I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Toscano, who will hand it back to me as we meet with Mr. Bruno up at the front of the room. So the November 3rd election, Freehold Borough Representative Harold Heshy Moses, 3,000. I'm sorry, that's what's on the back. 3,946 to 41 on write-ins. Howell Township Representative Peter J. Bruno, 3,547 to write-ins of 88. And Manalapan Township Representative Jennifer Cetera, 2,926 to write-ins of 35. Those are the results of the election.
So, for the past 30 days, the board has had a vacancy due to the resignation of Mr. William Bruno, and the board has been in a kind of interesting place because under the federal court case that was brought in the late 1990s, whereby the apportionment of votes was set up, Howell was to have 2 representatives, each with 1 vote apiece. Mr. William Bruno had to resign from the board for personal reasons prior to the expiration of his term, which would have been December 31st, 2015. Mr. Pete Bruno ran unopposed in the general election. So the Board of Education, in order to provide the residents of Howell with their designation of representatives on the board, is going to take action to appoint Mr. Pete Bruno to fill the unexpired term of Mr. William Bruno, which is, again, just 2 months. The only other option the board would have would be to appoint no one, and Mr. Pete Bruno would be sworn in January as customary and a part of the general election process. So I've been asked to read the following resolution, and then the board would be asked to take action. So whereas the Freehold Regional High School District currently has a vacancy due to the voluntary resignation of Mr. William Bruno prior to the expiration of his current 3-year term on the board, which would have ended on December 31st, 2015. Whereas one of the Howell representative seats on the board, which was previously occupied by Mr. William Bruno and that appeared on the ballot during the November 3rd, 2015 election, was won by Mr. Peter Bruno, who ran uncontested. Whereas pursuant to NJSA 18A 12-15, the Board of Education has 65 days in which to fill a vacancy caused by the resignation or removal of a board member, and if the vacancy is not filled in that time frame, the vacancy is filled by the Executive County Superintendent. Whereas the remainder of the board is desirous to provide the residents of Howell with their allocated representation on the board, now therefore be it resolved that the board hereby appoints Mr. Peter Bruno to fill the remainder of Mr. William Bruno's term on the board, which again expires on December 31st, 2015, and be it further resolved that in accordance with the results of the election held on November 3rd, 2015, Mr. Peter Bruno will also be sworn in at the board's reorganization meeting to officially begin his duly elected 3-year term on the board representing the citizens of Howell. So, Mr. Moses, we would need a motion for that.
We need a motion.
So moved.
Jen, second.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion?
And that would need to be a roll call vote. And go ahead.
Mrs. Canario?
Yes.
Mr. Asatola?
Yes.
Mrs. Sutera?
Yes.
Mr. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavin?
Yes.
Mr. Messinger,
Yes.
Mrs. Fankhauser.
Yes.
Motion's approved.
Mr. Bruno, can you join me up here? I state your name.
I, Peter J. Bruno, solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
And that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and I will bear true allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States and this state
and to the governments established in the United States and this state
under the authority of the people, so help me God.
under the authority of the people, so help me God.
I state your name.
I, Pete Bruno,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
for the office of member of Board of Education,
for the office of member of the Board of Education,
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
and I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability.
all the duties of that office according to the best of my abilities, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next up is minutes approval.
Motion second.
Motion, minutes approval.
Motion.
Thank you. Second. We have no second?
Second.
Thank you. We don't need discussion.
It's not up to me.
We don't need discussion on it. Go ahead.
Mr. Acetola?
Present, on account of not being at the prior board meeting.
Abstention. Mr. Bruno?
Present.
Mrs. Canario?
Abstain.
Mrs. Fankhauser?
I abstain.
Mrs. Lavin?
Abstain.
Mr. Messinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Sutera?
Yes.
Mr. Carollo? Oh, absent. Mr. Moses?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So why don't you move to the next section?
Okay. Communications on file. Next up is superintendent's report.
All right, we are going to recognize first our spooktacular honorees, but just a few words about the event before I turn it over to Mr. Roger Kane. You know, the spooktacular in Freehold Borough is one of the uniquely Freehold regional events that happens each year. And what it is our students, our art students, work on projects from start to finish, design it, draw it out. Our art teachers spend a lot of time with the students, and then they ultimately bring those projects to life on the windows of the local businesses in Freehold Borough. And it's a terrific community event, and it was interesting this year as I was walking the area. I happened to be walking where Freehold Borough was, and I was walking with Mrs. Jewell, the principal, and a few ladies stopped us. And they said, well, you know, what is this? And so we were explaining to them that it's been a tradition, I think, since the 50s, actually. And the two ladies were from England. And they happened to just be walking around that day, and they said, we have never seen anything like this. This is the best idea that we've ever seen, you know. And they were just effusive in their praise. But I think what happens on that day is the local community supports us in an unbelievable way. The local business owners, FRHSD in particular, with the pizza, But the kids that work all day then really get to interact with the folks in the town. And as people are walking up and down Main Street and a couple of the side streets, they really get to see our students in action and all the artistic talent that we have here. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful feeling. And it's something that school systems need to find better ways to do more of, to bring the whole community together like that. And I think it only happens because we have a real core group of dedicated volunteers who put the time in each and every year to bring that to life, and do an awful lot of work to make that happen. So we're appreciative. We're always very, very excited to take part. And it's one of my favorite days of the year, and we had the most gorgeous weather this year for it, so it was absolutely perfect. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Roger Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson. Thank you for those kind words. I mean, this is something that we've been doing. The volunteers, we put on a whole month of activities during the month of October. It's our spectacular, our Halloween spectacular, and it starts with the very first Saturday of the month. We put corn stalks all through the town to get people in the mood for Halloween coming. Then we have our jack-o'-lantern contest. We have a haunted hayride. And then we have a parade, which is the largest Halloween parade in Monmouth County, outside of Toms River, of course, has the biggest. But one of the biggest things that we do is our window painting. That's the one that creates a lot of attention and a lot of great feeling amongst the people. And what Mr. Sampson was saying was absolutely true. I mean, it's just a great feeling. Michael Federici this year, we had to go back to him. It seemed the students were a little hungrier than they have in the past. He normally gives, we feed all the students lunch, and that consists of pizza pies and water, or I guess we're done with soda, so it's mostly water. But it's just a great thing. This year we give 50 pies usually. This year we had to go back to him for 5 more because we ran short. So it was a great thing. So I'd like to call up, and we have people to thank here. The board has always supported us. Without the board's help, Mr. Sampson and Heshy Moses, who were both there at that time during the day when they're painting, but without your help, we couldn't do it. It just would be impossible. And the parade is so great because we have participation of all the high school bands. And so that makes it super right there. We have tons of marchers. We have probably about 800 costumed children in the parade. But we're here tonight to give out awards to some outstanding artists. You know, it's amazing what the teachers must do with these children. And then they come out on this day and they have a living classroom right out on the windows and the streets of Main Street in Freehold. So I'd like to call up the committee, some of the committee members that are here tonight. Billy Anderson is the chairman of Spooktacular. Rich Kane, who is hiding in the back, is also a member of the Spooktacular committee. He spent, for anybody who's familiar with Manalapan, he spent many years here. He probably taught some of the parents that are here. And my wife, Barbara Kane, is going to do the handing out. This is Barbara here. She's going to hand out the trophies along with Mr. Sampson. Huh? I'm calling names? Oh. I'm still taking orders, no matter what. It doesn't matter. It happens at home, happens here. All right. Well, I just wanted a couple more thanks. Jay Robinson and Annette Piazza worked very, very hard on this project. You see the pictures up there. That happens to be the first place winner. You see the pictures up there. They go around, they take the pictures, they make sure everything's running smooth with the teachers and things. So without them, we probably would be in tough shape also. Barbara, I guess you're ready to call names? We're going to start with honorable mention. This year, the judges had such a difficult time. We had so many great, great pictures, scenes that they had done. So they decided that we better have some honorable mention because there were some really, really nice pictures that didn't get first, second, or third, but certainly did deserve to be mentioned. So when we call your name, we'd like the teachers to come up. And if the parents are here, we'd like the parents to come up too and be recognized for your your art students that are so good. So.
Okay. Hello, everyone. And congratulations to all of the participants. The artwork was phenomenal. So we will start with honorable mention, and the first one to be called up from Freehold High School for the ballerina is Ariana Mexquititla and Maria Quatlaquat. Their teacher, Mr. Dan Finaldi. Is Mr. Finaldi here? And the next honorable mention to Howell High School, and it is for Goosebumps, painted by Janessa Ternosky, and her teacher is John Carey. And Mr. Braverman is accepting, and thank you very much. Next, from Manalapan High School, painting of Mummy with Hand and Eyeballs by students Ashlyn Tobin and Rebecca Rutherford. Their teacher is Robert Andresi. The last honorable mention from Marlborough High School is The Vampire, painted by Lily Gilston and Matt Cruz, and their teacher, Kinsey Beaton. And their art supervisor, Jane Goldstein. And we will go now to third place, which goes to Freehold Township, painting of the Scarecrow Scene by students Sabrina Kukuti, Mara Cash, Courtney Dillon, their teacher Marissa Alvarado, and second place, the painting of The Lady with Red Lips and Red Flower by Amelia Frank and Brianna Miller. Their teacher is Lauren Iacello. And I understand this evening that Deborah Kozar, the assistant principal, will accept. The first place trophy, which will be awarded shortly, is the trophy that travels from school to school. And it has been, this is our second trophy. Our very first trophy was retired and resides in the board office. And we are very proud to this evening to present the first place winning trophy to Freehold Township High School for the painting of Starry Night by Andrea Dumalagan and Jenna Wong. Their teacher, is Marissa Alvarado.
Reminds me of Van Gogh. It's cool. It really is. But the colors remind me of Van Gogh. I don't know what the colors remind me of Van Gogh. It's like my mother had in my house. Yeah.
These are judged by artists. The judges are artists and a former art teacher.
It's nice though, the trophy goes from school to school. Traveling of the sister pants. We're coming there.
That concludes our presentations. We'll see you guys, see everybody again next year. Right?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, so a few other items in my report. Today we received our official park scores, and so for folks who understand that last year was the first full year of a new assessment system in the state of New Jersey, known as the Park Test. These are course level assessments that are given, and that we have a very different range of graduation requirements over the next several years through the class of 2020, actually, and that park assessments are one of those assessments that will meet graduation requirements. We are just now really starting to dig into those score reports to start making some sense of them and what they look like. Obviously, the situation with park assessments across the state is a bit clouded with the number of refusals that occurred with those assessments. We're hopeful that the data that we do receive is meaningful. We're going to take a close look at it. What we plan on doing is making some sense of the information, and then what we will do in each one of our high schools is hold a parent information night for understanding and interpreting the scores so that we can walk our parents through what those score reports are really telling you about your child, and that's all underway at this point in time. Obviously, as advertised across the nation, the warning was that the scores will be lower than what the state assessments had previously been in terms of what those proficiency numbers look like. Park is scored on a 5-scale scoring system. Score of a 4 or a 5 is what is needed to be quote-unquote college and or career ready within those assessments. And we're moving into year 2 this year, and from a logistical standpoint, it was certainly a heavy lift last year for us. Having gone through it for 1 year, I think we learned schedule-wise what works, what doesn't work across the district. Our 6 different high schools really had 6 different schedules last year during testing, just to meet the unique needs of each building in terms of space and room utilization and what even the bell schedules look like. Our Teachers Association was very cooperative during testing last year and signed a sidebar saying, understanding that the daily schedule may be disrupted, and gave us some flexibility to really maximize our time to utilize the testing environment as meaningfully as possible. So more to come on that, and we will be sending a mailing out to parent guardians in the next couple of days with an awful lot of information, very detailed, specific information and places on where to go in the interim before our parent nights for more expansive information. We also, Ms. Morton and Mr. Braverman conducted a Communications Advisory Committee meeting on November 9th. This grows out of our strategic plan. One of our strands in planning for the strategic plan now 4 years ago was centered on communications. We reconvened members of that committee to go through the progress we've made over the past several years with increasing our tools to communicate with the larger community, and so just walk those folks through that. In that time, obviously, we've implemented a district app, developed a Facebook page, utilization of social media, use Vimeo quite a bit, a new website. So really just sort of expanded our communicative tools across the district. Our fall plays are well underway across the district presently in all 6 high schools. Please stop and see a performance. We have some unbelievable performances here across the district and some really, really talented students. There's an awful lot of work that goes into putting those performances together. So I'd encourage folks to come out and support the fall plays. We've had an incredibly successful season in terms of state playoffs, and tomorrow night's actually a unique opportunity. We have the Freehold Township girls and boys soccer teams playing in the state final back-to-back in one location, which is almost unheard of in terms of how that fell out from a scheduling perspective. We have a number of other teams doing quite well, and we'll recognize many of their accomplishments during our December board meeting, as we always do. Thanksgiving is upon us, which is frightening. The years roll by very, very quickly here. A wise person once told me that the days are long, but the years are short. I'm starting to really buy into that. We're already working on our draft of the 16-17 school calendar. That will be done shortly, and the year is well underway. And that will conclude tonight's report.
Okay, we have one committee report, and that's the Finance Committee. Mike?
Yes. Okay. We had a meeting on November 3rd. There were 3 issues that were really touched upon. The first one was the fact that the audit is wrapping up, and the auditors are going to present their findings at our December meeting. And then with respect to the tracks at Freehold Borough and Marlborough are on schedule and should be done by springtime. And I think if the weather really cooperated, they potentially could have been done before the real onset of winter. Right? That hasn't changed in the last week, correct?
No, it hasn't.
Okay, good. All right. But we spent most of the meeting really talking about student activity procedures in terms of all the different student groups. What the district periodically reviews its procedures to ensure that adequate internal controls are in place and operating as designed. The individual schools manage the building-based financial activities, including those that are maintained in the Student Activities Fund. And the Student Activities Fund promotes opportunity, but it really gives the students a mechanism to raise funds for all the various extracurricular activities. But it is, of course, it does require strong internal control since there is a lot of money being collected by all these groups. So what we really want to do is set upon some district-wide procedures that have to do with control to really protect all the different stakeholders, both on the giving and the receiving side. And the work is underway on formulating and getting the procedures in place and disseminating them around the district. And this is something that should be complete by the end of the school year. And that's it for me, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, next up, we have public participation, and I know this will please Carl in the audience. We have no one signing up for public participation.
I thought
Okay, next up, we have the agenda, which,
Just a couple items on the agenda.
absolutely,
I believe this one sheet is in the back for some changes to the agenda to start with section G3. The name Caitlin Roberts listed on there, the start date should be December 4th, 2015. In G10, the following teachers for 6-period assignments, the effective date should read November 4th. They are James Culliver, David Kretzmer, Marlowe's McMillan is the last name, Denise Olarte, and Shannon Silver. And then also there's one additional item for the agenda. It'll be on K2 under administration, and it reads, resolved by the board to adopt and approve the settlement agreement in the matter under docket number L-3356-13. That's all I have. It did, but I just added.
okay. So that brings us to the agenda, which I'd like to take in one shot. Motion for the agenda.
Motion. Do it.
Do we have a second? Thank you, Ken.
No, I just, no,
No.
I just, discussion, but you do the
We're not
second
there
first.
yet.
Okay.
We need a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Who was first? Jen, okay.
Discussion?
I just, I'm just reading over the nurse's schedule. Oh, that's not nurse's schedule. It's on before, hold on. And I noticed Howell High School has one day that there's only one nurse on duty.
Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah. I have a question. Have we done that in the past, or? I'm just noticing that our second nurse to Janine is there 4 days. So Wednesday, there's only one nurse there? I mean, it's such a high attendance school. I was just curious about that.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Okay. So then that's the same with some of the other schools. There may be only one nurse on duty then.
Yeah, we rotate them around as much as possible based on student population. And, so Howell has the highest percentage of representation over the course of a week than any of the other schools because
Right.
of the higher student population. So they actually have more coverage
They're
than the other.
covered 4 days with double.
That's correct.
So, okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Boyce?
Mr. Hasatola?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Present.
Mrs. Canario?
Yes.
Mrs. Fankhauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavin?
Yes.
Mr. Messinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Sutera?
Yes.
Mr. Moses?
Yes. Okay, that brings us to old business. Do we have any old business? I know, speaking for myself, I don't want to embarrass anybody else up here on the board, but for those of us who have not graduated past stick figures, I'm in awe of the talent of the artists in the district. They're just incredible. New business, as our superintendent said, tomorrow night at Neptune,
Oh, it's at Neptune
at
Stadium?
Neptune's
Okay.
field. Actually, is it the
Is it the turf field
is it
over
the
there,
turf
right?
field? Do you know? Or
I'm not.
Probably there.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
okay. I think it's the state semifinals, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah.
Green
Okay,
Grove,
that's a
yeah,
turf,
that's
yeah.
okay. That's where they usually play them. It's the state semifinals. Freehold Township females and males in soccer.
Colts Neck girls tomorrow night as well.
And also Colts Neck, but I'm not sure where Colts Neck is playing. So that's 3 schools, or 3 teams from the district are playing in the state semifinals, which is an incredible feat.
Wow.
And good luck to them. Any other new business? Seeing none, we have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion.
Thank you. Liz, second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. So shall you say, so shall it be written. Thank you for coming.
I saw your name go up.
I know.